Let's ask the man himself. He joins us now. Benjamin Allbright, NFL Draft Insider, NFL Insider, friend of the program. We are roughly 7 days away, Benjamin, from the start of this thing. And you see Tony Pauline's comments this morning. I know you've been very adamant, if the Broncos can hedge it, they don't want to trade Patrick Surtain. So I'll give you the floor here, my friend. What are you hearing as it relates to the Broncos and their efforts to come up with pick 4 in the Arizona Cardinals?
Well, I'll say this. I know that the Broncos have made a call there to Arizona, and like any responsible general manager, they've ascertained the price tag to move up to various different spots and move back to various different spots. I was at the presser today. I did not get the vibe that they were in a rush to move up. I do believe they like J.J. McCarthy. I do, and I think if he fell far enough, I think that they would certainly look into that. I don't get the vibe that they're in a big hurry to move up. I still think they'll be back, to be honest with you. But we'll see. I noticed that Sean Payton did take a shot at that report today, making a quip about Timmy from Tucson or something like that, and how it had no legitimacy, to it. So, that is what it is. I'm not even 100% convinced that Arizona was going to trade out of 4. Last year when I was on this show and I told you guys they were trading back, I knew they'd trade back. This year, I'm not 100% they're trading back. I think they like their guy, and it's tough. The right offer comes along, yeah, they'll move back, but I'm not 100% convinced that they're moving back off of 4.
The Broncos had their pre-draft press conference. So did Monty Ossenfort and the Cardinals. I was there, Benjamin. And basically what Ossenfort outlined was he had to be overwhelmed. He has to be overwhelmed. It has to be the right deal. It's not any deal. He's not going to just, take offers and say, hey, this is the best one. It has to, I'm sure, meet what he's asking for. But if you were to rank as far as, there's the Marvin Harrison Jr. Hold the liners here. They just want to stick and pick. But what is the biggest threat to that happening? Or which team is it, in your opinion? If the Broncos don't have enough, aren't willing to meet that asking price, who are the teams legitimately a threat to come up the draft board?
I think there's really 2 teams that are a threat to come up. I think that's Minnesota, obviously, and then I think that potentially the Giants are the other threat, and I use that in air quotes, to come up there. I don't necessarily believe that people have talked about the Raiders and all that, and I think the Raiders will take a quarterback in this draft. I just don't think they'll do it in the first round. So I think there's like 2 teams that are a threat there, really. Minnesota has all the capital in the world. The Giants aren't that far of a fall back to be able to do that. You trade with the Giants, you're still guaranteeing yourself one of Harrison or Neighbors, both of which are going to be absolute studs, in the NFL. So I think those are the air quotes threats. If you're looking for who the probables are, I would suggest that Minnesota, the Giants, and then if it was cheap enough, I guess the Broncos. But I don't get the vibe the Broncos are coming up to 4 right now. I know they've made the calls, but I don't get that vibe.
What do you get the vibe with the Chargers, Benjamin? Let's say hypothetically the Arizona Cardinals can get a deal done. Let's say they do a quickie deal with the Giants. They go from 4 to 6. They get a couple day 2 picks. Do you think it's a home run, slam dunk, that the Chargers would take Marvin Harrison Jr., or do you believe Jim Harbaugh, with his conservative, let's go line of scrimmage background, offensive tackle, maybe even a Brock Bowers, is there another player or 2 that you could watch at pick 5, or is it just simply they're going to go BPA with Harrison Jr.?
Maybe. I think Harrison or Neighbors would be in play there. I think they want to trade out of 5. I do believe they want to trade out. I just don't know that there's necessarily a market there. I think that the market is if Arizona stays home at 4, then the market develops with Minnesota and New York to try to get to, Minnesota to get ahead of New York at 5, and all of a sudden you're in business there. I don't believe the Chargers would trade with the Broncos because I don't believe Jim Harbaugh is putting his boy in the division and having to play him twice. So I think Minnesota is really the only team at that point. So the Chargers don't have a ton of leverage. But I believe they do want to trade back. I do believe the Chargers want to continue improving the offensive line, and that they can get receivers later in a pretty deep receiver draft. Harbaugh can go get his boy Roman Wilson a little later, and add that to that room and go from there. We've already seen what they've done, through free agency, adding the Ravens running back core from yesteryear with the Gus Bus and J.K. Dobbins. So they're going to be a smash mouth. They're building a bully there. They want to be a smash mouth football team. We saw how that worked before, for Harbaugh with the Niners. So I suspect that if the opportunity presents itself, the Chargers would trade back. If they sit there, I know a lot of people have Alt penciled in there. I don't think Alt is their guy. I think they're on. I think they're on some of the other tackles there, and I think at that point, if they're forced to make a choice, I think then they may take the receiver. If they're stuck there at 5, which to me suggests that either Harrison or Neighbors would be the pick. I don't think it would be a Dunze. I think he's the third. I think he's the third wide receiver to everybody. I don't think anybody that I'm aware of has him 1 or 2. So, and to be honest with you, I think the gap between Roma Dunes and Neighbors and Harrison, I think he's closer to like Brian Thomas than he is to those two. I know everybody kind of made it the big 3, but I think just amongst the people I talk to, that doesn't encompass everybody, obviously. But amongst the people I talk to, I feel more like he's closer to the other guys than the Brian Thomas Jr. than he is to like Neighbors and Harrison. So, we'll see. But I think the Giants, if it comes to the Giants, I think they'd prefer to have Neighbors if they can't get McCarthy or May. So, that's kind of how that situation looks to kind of play out.
Feels like even before the Minnesota Vikings, you knew that the asking price to get up to 4 with the Arizona Cardinals was going to be 3 first-round picks, right? And we see that, and I don't think Monty Ossenfort is going to budge off of that, especially with the caliber of players on the board. But when we talk about the 6th overall, move up from 6 for the New York Giants, what do you believe the asking price would be for that deal to be made?
Not as much. I mean, you're not moving that far. You can still get your guy. I mean, obviously you're going to get an extra first rounder out of it. So you're probably, if you're the Giants, you're probably losing next year's first round draft pick. And then you're probably losing another pick in this draft. So you're probably, to flip flop like that, you're giving up a future first and then probably a later, there may be a pick swap in this draft, kind of thing. Like you might see them, I don't know, trade places early in a round, like the 2nd or 3rd, to give the Giants a more advantageous, pick, that kind of thing. That way you secure the first rounder and you get kind of the approximate point value. Things are exponential in those first 6 picks, right? It's exponential when you want to go up, how much it costs. But as you drop down, it exponentially goes down too. So going down 2 spots, you're not going to get quite the haul. You still get a little something, but you're not getting quite the haul that you get, like, if you could trick a Raiders or a Broncos into coming up to 4. And I'm using that word trick on purpose.
Yeah, it seems like Jaden Daniels is all but a commander at this point. Give me your walkthrough of what you make of the New England situation. When you were on with us at the draft, it was clear at the time that they wanted to trade down. And now if you talk to most people, you look at the sports books like Drake May, is he in line to become a New England Patriot? Like, fast forward to next week, are you going to be shocked if May doesn't go 3rd overall?
Yeah, I'd be pretty surprised. I mean, unless like Minnesota trades into there or something. But
right.
Look, I still believe that New England wants to trade back out of 3, but I also believe that the owner there wants the quarterback. I don't think that he's okay with going into the season with Jacoby Brissett. So I think Robert Kraft, I believe Robert Kraft has his thumb on the scale a little bit there. And so but Elliott Wolf, I mean, that's the son of Ron Wolf, right? That's you talk about a guy who would want to trade back, multiply the picks, have a bunch of ammo and rolling capital to be able to work with. We talked about this last year with Monty Ossenfort. This is the smartest thing you can do your first year as a general manager is trade back. So the war chest is always stocked and you got the flexibility. It is the smartest thing you can do in your first year as a GM. And so, I believe that there are people there that want to do that, that want to trade back, but I think they're probably going to wind up getting stymied by ownership unless they're just blown away by an offer that they can't refuse.
And also, was it Ron Wolf big on the quarterback position to think, early in this draft process that they would go a different position? Maybe Amar was a bit foolish as well. He probably never talked to his son ever again if he took a wide receiver 3rd overall in the start of a rebuild. But look, Monty Ossenfort looks like a genius right now. He's just stock full as far as draft capital goes. Let's have some fun, though, because I know that you're going to give us some good quotes on this as far as the belief, especially with the Vikings at their pre-draft press conference. We're talking about the different tiers of quarterback in this draft. And if they want to mess around, if they want to F around, they're going to find out that they're going to have to reach on some of these quarterbacks that you are hearing around league sources are not viewed as first rounders.
Well, okay. Funny how that stuff works, right? Remember how what was it? The betting favorite to go at 4 last year was Will Levis, right up until 10 minutes before the draft, or 10 minutes before the pick was in. So it's I mean, he was like the prohibitive favorite. So I mean, like it's funny how some of this stuff works, and a lot of these guys up until the last minute, you'll see that kind of stuff. The people I talk to don't believe it. They don't believe basically. The people I talk to around the league, unless the Broncos and the Raiders take Nix and Penix, they don't believe they're going in the first round. Maybe somebody trades up at the end of the first round there to grab a Penix or whatever, but most of these people don't believe that. I mean, I talked to somebody who's widely respected. What day is today? So it's been 3 days ago, and he said that look, you could probably get Nix if the Broncos don't take him. He's probably going to be there in the third round. To be honest with you, he's like a lot of these the quarterbacks that you're looking at here, the desperation for quarterback. What happens is you start getting that arrogance, like, well, I can turn this guy into somebody. I'm not getting these guys, but I can turn this guy into something, and you start getting that, and it pushes some of these guys up that shouldn't necessarily be pushed up sometimes, but sometimes that's to their advantage because if you look at guys that get drafted a little bit later in that first round, like Lamar Jackson, you fall into a good situation. You fall into a situation where there's no pressure on you. You got a good team and a great organization. He's like, so sometimes some of these quarterbacks can backdoor their way into situations like that. And that's not to denigrate Lamar Jackson at all. And not to say he's a bad player, but that the situation is what I'm talking about. And then, we went on to have conversations about trading up for a quarterback and how if you don't have a ready-made team around them, that's usually a brutally bad idea. You go back and you look, and really the lone success story of team to trade up without having the team already built for the quarterback is Buffalo. And it took them a couple of years to get there, right? But most of the time when you're trading up to get the quarterback, if you got the team built, you're going to be successful. Look at Kansas City, right? Look at now I say San Francisco, they traded all that up to get to Trey Lance and they lucked out with Brock Purdy at the back door, but you get the idea. They had those are ready-made journeymen, carried the team till they built it. Alex Smith, Jimmy Garoppolo, they built the team out, then they traded the capital to go get the quarterback. If you trade the capital before you get the team built, you bring a quarterback in, you got nothing around him, you got nothing to build with, and it's going to wind up looking bad.
Yeah, I think with New England, they're going to F around and find out just what that looks like, even with a Drake May on that roster, which is depleted. I think it attests to like what Kyler Murray was able to do with this franchise, 2019, 2020, elevating a poor roster. Benjamin, let me ask you this, because you broke it down, I think, really well. Marvin Harrison Jr. is on a different tier than a lot of players in this draft. Like a lot of people assume he's 1A or 1B with neighbors. Obviously, we think he's the best player to come out each of the last 2 years in the draft, respectfully. And if you want to include Caleb Williams, whatever. But so do NFL franchises, we heard Austin Ford speak today, understand the magnitude of, we can trade down, but we're passing on a talent that could come back to haunt us. I mean, this franchise is guilty of it. Passing on Adrian Peterson once upon a time, passing on Terrell Suggs. Like, do you feel like in particular with this top 10 of blue chippers, like it's in the Cardinals' best interest to say, you know what, maybe we shouldn't continue to try to double and triple down on a lot of draft capital we already have?
I think there's truth to that. I don't think teams view it as this could come back to bite us. This player could come back to bite us. They don't look at it that way. If it's your guy, they just make sure they're in a position to get their guy, and that's that. And I think more so than media or fans give teams credit, right?
Right.
They don't risk it. Like fans we're drafted in Madden, right? We're like, well, I can drop that here. Maybe this guy will fall. Teams don't do like that. They'll move back a little bit, but they'll still think they're in the range to get their guy in most cases, with that kind of stuff. So that part of it, as far as the other part though, I mean, you don't want to mess around and lose your guy. You don't want to roll the dice just to pick up, a future seventh and then, because, 5th through 7th round, those are dart throws anyway, right? I mean, at that point, you've run out of, you got your top 150 there, and then after that, you're just taking chances on character and athleticism and injury and whatever else. At that point, 5th through 7th to undrafted free agent guys. Really, most teams use 5th through 7th rounders on guys that are that had injuries or that that had academic issues used to be, or had or guys that they don't want to compete with on the UDFA market right after. The scramble right after. They'll draft them so they don't have to bid against somebody else on the UDFA market right after the draft. So, you want to multiply your draft capital, but you also want to be sensible about it. You don't want to move yourself out of position to get the guy that you wanted just to have extra lottery tickets later that may or may not turn into anything.
You got Broncos Country tonight. Of course, you want to check it out. You can check it out on the iHeartRadio app. Benjamin Allbright, go to some fantastic insight. Follow him, Allbright NFL on Twitter. Your last mock draft you did. You got, of course, is it the Tuesday before the draft? You dropped your final mock?
It'll be the Wednesday before. It used to be the Tuesday before, and this is going to sound like arrogant and douchey, but I don't care. It used to be the Tuesday before, but the deadline for submitting for all these contests is like Wednesday night. Okay. And I started noticing people copying some of the stuff that I was doing. Like I deliberately misspelled a name and watched somebody like paste that into their mock draft. So I finally got tired of that stuff. So I'm actually going to drop it the Wednesday morning after the submission deadline. So people can't, I used to do it Tuesday because I used to didn't care. But then when I, like I said, I saw people taking credit for work that wasn't theirs. That's when I started getting to the point of a little irritation. So I'm going to drop it on Wednesday from now on.
Yeah, sorry, that's my co-host's fault. He should have just at least switched it up a little bit.
Yeah, you could have used the spell check, man.
Come on.
But let me ask you this: in your last one, you had the Cardinals trading down and then back up.
What was it? If I had to guess today?
Yeah,
I like to do those little things. I think that was wasn't that right before the combine?
It was more recent than that. I want to say. Okay. What was it? 2 weeks ago? You did it on
there.
Yes
for today.
Yeah. Sorry,
we'd love a revised guess for today.
Oh man, if I had to put money on it today, I would say stay pat at 4 and take Marvin Harrison. I would say if I'm guessing today, if I had to guess today, and this will probably be the last time I do one of these before the draft, so you guys are getting this special. I would say that it goes Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Marvin Harrison, no trades. And then at 5, you got Minnesota jumping up in there to go get J.J. McCarthy. Neighbors go 6 to the Giants. So there you go. You got my last little one right there. Have fun with it.
We got 400 plus people that you just made happy in the chat. Thank you so much. So gracious with his time. NFL insider, friend of the program, Benjamin Allbright. Check out his work on Twitter and Broncos Country tonight. Thank you so much, Benjamin.
Absolutely, guys. Take care.